All right, so let's just say that I'm wrong, that anybody who questions NASA is a complete moron, and the education system just didn't do me any favors. I'm just an idiot. I'm just a blonde, right? So wouldn't it be weird if NASA lost all the original footage of them actually going to the moon? Like any proof that they actually did do it, all the original tapes? Like with their $632 billion a year budget, they ran out of VHS tapes and they wanted to catch some reruns of Elf or something. And so they taped over all the original footage from Apollo 11. But no, right? Because they're brilliant scientists and, they have so much integrity. And this organization just should never be questioned because the government would never lie to us, right?
NASA lost the original recordings of the Apollo 11 moon landing. The original tapes were most likely reused or overwritten with low-resolution satellite imagery for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration because they were running out of tapes.
The records clearly showed that there's an inescapable conclusion that this team has reached, and that is that these 45 tapes were included in the several hundred thousand that were pulled out, recertified, degaussed, and put back into the network. The slow scan recordings are no longer.
Haven't seen anything that indicates the telemetry data is even in existence. And as I said, even if we had it, we don't have the machines to play it back.
Right, we've been unable to track it down. I mean, we don't know where this telemetry data ended up, and we don't know what path it may have taken. So
the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
It's just so ridiculous that we're constantly getting gaslit and people act as though there's absolutely zero reasons for people to not believe this organization, to not believe the things that they've told us and what we've seen. And if you look at the footage from back then, there's a lot of things going on there. I mean, who's taking the film of them leaving the moon, and where is the light source coming from? There's all these inconsistencies. And back then, people looked at it and they were just in awe, and there was a lot more magic behind the camera. There was a lot more spell casting happening. A lot more people were under the spell of magic cinema and TV programs and all of that. And so no one questioned it. And now we look at the footage and there are so many inconsistencies. And if you're a photographer or anyone that does film, it's incredibly questionable. Even if you aren't, it still looks really janky. And the fact that they're saying that they don't have the same technology. So basically we had better technology 50 years ago, but now we have better technology and we're just now taking a mission. None of it makes sense, dude. None of it makes sense. And that's not all. There's more.
It's a privilege for us to be here representing not only the United States, but
My team uncovered a problem at NASA happening on the ground.
They can put a man on the moon.
1. Booster ignition.
But they can't keep track of the equipment they use to do it. That's according to NASA reports obtained by the I-Team. Kennedy Space Center employees report just last year, nearly $500,000 of high-tech items simply vanished.
Digital video recorder valued at $100,000.
Here's another one. 11 radios lost. Price, $35,000. And a high-tech wave reflectometer went missing in 2008. That's another $18,000. NASA officials say they're aware of the problem.
We need to do a better job of keeping track of it, obviously, and we know that. We want to do a better job of it.
Most of the missing items are computers, TVs, and radio equipment.
Don't spend your time tracking computers and not launching spaceships. I mean, you need to be launching spaceships.
So we have TV broadcasts telling us that NASA's just losing equipment left and right, just like millions of dollars out the window. And yet we still continue to be treated as though we are just so crazy, and there's no reason to question any of these government organizations. And the thing that people don't understand is that two things can exist at the same time. I'm sure there are loads of really talented and amazing and nice people that work at NASA and in surrounding companies like Lockheed and Teledyne Brown and all these tech companies and whatnot. And I'm sure they're really good at doing what they do and they're brilliant people. But it doesn't really matter what they do because there's a lot of people above them that make all of the money, and the people in the foreground are just the sort of cover, just the sort of like puppeteers for everything. Why would NASA lie? So there's very few people that know what really is going on underneath the veil of everything, and the people that do know what's going on are getting paid a lot of money and they work for very powerful people. I know what most people say. They're like, why would NASA make stuff up? And like, why would they lie? And why would they go through all that trouble just to hoodwink everybody? And that's when it gets really complex and spiritual. This is like the ultimate spell casting, and it's part of trauma-based mind control. I mean, believe me, there is nobody else in this world that wants space and all of the stories about NASA to be true more than me. I went to space camp and space academy for 4 or 5 years as a kid. So I was like the biggest space geek. You know, I did the flight simulation. We did all of the, all the stuff that you see in the movie, the 80s movie, Space Camp, the multi-axis trainer, the 1/6 chair. We did the flight simulation at the end of the week. We watched IMAX movies every night in the theater. We stayed in a habitat. It was amazing. It was everything as a kid. But as an adult, looking back at some of the narratives that they've given us, I don't believe hardly any of it. Thinking back when I was like 9 years old and the Challenger took off and blew up in front of everyone's face, that was messed up. And the fact that they had a school teacher on board, I remember that was pushed on us so hard in school. And my mom was a school teacher and she was so excited about it. And everybody in my school was so excited about it. So they wheeled out the VHS cart and they played it in front of everybody and they blew up the Challenger. So everyone thought all of those astronauts died that day in front of everybody. That was like the 9/11 for the 80s for us. And so it traumatized everybody. And it was like this big emotional loosh fest where everybody became emotionally attached to what happened with them and the space program in general. And that's what keeps this kind of stuff going. Why would people like this lie? Greed, money laundering, undercover programs where they're doing experiments on technology that they don't want us to know anything about. They've had technology way beyond what we've seen for decades and decades. And so they have to, if they're spending $634 billion a year on stuff, they have to put on some sort of show to make it look like they're doing something with it, right? So don't even tell me that we've gone to the moon and they're telling us the truth about anything when we saw Jeff Bezos' wife and Katy Perry pull that little stunt last year, whenever it was. That was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. So let's just take a little trip back into history.
Okay, so let's go back to 1986 for a second, because this was one of the most shocking moments in history. The Space Shuttle Challenger disaster that launched on January the 28th, 1986. Now, on this disaster, there was 7 astronauts on board, one of them being a school teacher, which made this entire mission even more special because millions of people, especially children, were watching this rocket launch live. But just 73 seconds after takeoff, the shuttle exploded in the sky, live on television in front of the entire world. All 7 crew members lost their lives instantly. Now, these were the astronauts that horrifically lost their life, and like I said, this absolutely shook the world. Long before the 9/11, the next shaking of the world was obviously 9/11, which we already know was a very dodgy situation. Now, so was this, because what's crazy is that these astronauts that lost their lives, they have miraculously been found living the same lives with the same names. Just like, these two very similar looking people right here, Francis Richard Scobie, who died in the NASA astronaut disaster in 1986, and Richard Scobie here, who is still alive and well, and he is still looking exactly like he used to, just a little bit older. But what's crazy is that every single astronaut in this disaster has been found looking exactly the same with the exact same names. Thinking, well, Jack, how did they get out the spaceship then? Because it literally blew up 73 seconds into the journey, and the whole world seen it, and it was
a complete catastrophe, horrific disaster that shook the entire world. Well, you know how they love to mock us and tell us truth in plain sight, so they did show you exactly how they were going to leave this rocket before it took off. They just made you think that it was for something else. Listen to this.
And head down this tube, specially insulated against fire, and zigzagging down not to some point out and away from the rocket, but to an escape room exactly where you'd think it shouldn't be. 3.5 minutes after they get the warning in the capsule, the crew could be down here in the blast escape room via that 200-foot escape tube, 40 feet below the base of the rocket. They find themselves in a totally rubber room, walls and floors.
I mean, did you catch that? The BBC, of all people, told you that it takes them 3 minutes and 30 seconds to go down the chute. Yeah, anyway, this was just for entertainment. I'm only joking, beautiful people. Obviously, these people actually went up in this rocket, and the unfortunate people that were aboard this ship definitely haven't been found alive. These are just doppelgangers with the exact same names, exact same facial structures, and the exact same careers.
For your help, but first a little backstory. I think we all remember the Challenger explosion that took place in 1986 that tragically took the lives of all 7 astronauts on board. It launched not too far from where we're standing here today. Well, the interesting thing is, a couple decades later, this thing called the internet came about, and someone allegedly found almost all of those astronauts alive and well, many using the same exact names. As you can see here, we have Challenger astronaut Judith Resnick, and also a Judith Resnick Yale Law professor. Michael J. Smith, the pilot of the Challenger astronaut, and also professor at University of Wisconsin, now retired Michael J. Smith. Commander Nick Scobie, who is now president of Cows and Trees. Now, if you'll notice, they all have the exact same faces 30 some odd years later, the same exact name, and they are the same age. Now, we all have a doppelganger out there, right? No big deal. But to have the same face, the same age, and the same exact name is extremely rare. So rare, I could only find one case in the last 120 years. And we're supposed to believe that 3 people from one spaceflight have exact lookalikes that have the same age and same exact names. This, ladies and gentlemen, is beyond statistically impossible. Ms. Resnick was questioned at Yale by a journalist, and she panicked and ran from the camera. Why? Mr. Michael J. Smith was also questioned, and he said, yeah, we look alike, but that's not me.
Trust me when I say every single one of the people that were apparently dead in this disaster have been found alive under the same name.
So that leaves us with the question, have we gone to the moon? Have we gone into space? Have we orbited? What is real? There are countless videos on the internet that you can look up and find all kinds of proof that there are lies upon lies upon lies within this association. You can also watch videos of astronauts at the International Space Station where they're Photoshop and CGI glitches, and it's very clear that they're altering the footage that they're showing us. And again, this is what it boils down to. You either trust the government and you trust the world that we've grown up in, or you don't. And you understand that there are underground programs, there are technologies that they're working on, there are different things that they're doing that they don't want anyone to know about. And they have to put on a extreme front in order to cover that. And yes, there are different space experiments that they are doing, but they're not telling us any of that. And it's certainly not what we've seen on TV, that's for sure. I've seen SpaceX be launched before. Like, I've seen what they're doing. I have no idea what that stuff is, but it certainly isn't what they're telling us. And I don't believe that humans are just up there like zooming around and blue suits and doing exercises on janky machines with things floating around. Like, I don't believe any of that. Do we have technology, or do we have capabilities to do things? Yes. But everything that we've seen on TV is complete and utter nonsense. So tell me, guys, what do you think? Do you think we've gone to the moon? Do you think that footage is fake? Do you think NASA is lying to us? What do you think?